We're starting on chapter 322 together, and we begin with Nami chillaxing in the middle of the sea on the Mary, having a nice, lovely cold drink. I didn't know they had a freezer, so the ice was a surprise for me. Absolutely adore that for them because I'm an ice person. And I really enjoy that he always does this. Oda gives us that little breath of a moment where we get to just enjoy what the crew is doing, look at how they're eating, let them hang out as a way of finding out what everybody was doing in the meantime, in between, when we're not having fight after fight. And then, boom, a giant frog doing the freestyle crawl comes across the ocean. Okay, Grandma is the bomb. I knew she was going to be more important because who hands you a piece of paper with a crappy written drawing and a thing that says take care of these people if they're not important? They would never have that kind of flex. They would be like, here's a crappily scribbled picture and note because people really give a crap what I say. So it was really clear that Grandma Kokora was going to be something that was more important eventually.
Her introduction's so fun. She is one of the peak random people we meet in One Piece. Like, there's so many of those who are just like a person we meet along the way that's part of the story. And Granny Kokoro is just like perfect, the platonic ideal random stranger we make friends with.
Also, I love Chimney, but I love her bunny / cat.
Was it a cat that's actually a bunny or a bunny that's actually a cat? I can't remember.
It's a bunny that apparently is a cat.
Okay.
And I really love that Granny Kokora also immediately says, watch out for the government people. Now, we know why she says this, but it's that awesome foreshadowing, and it kind of shows her bigger ability to look at the future. So I enjoyed that a great deal.
It's also sad to find out that her alcoholism isn't just a bit and that there's like a start of it.
Okay, yeah, let's not go there because later when you see her in the bar and she's sitting there drinking, you're like, yeah, I guess you will. I mean, now that I've seen what you went through, I guess that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, this isn't just a funny joke about alcoholic lady. This is like, oh, she's drowning her sorrows.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh, crushing my soul, crushing my soul. Okay. Big giant frog. I have ideas about him, but he'll come back later because he needs to. That's not the time for him yet. And I do like she mentioning ahead of time that if there's a special place to go that is for government only.
Mm-hmm. Setting that idea up ahead of time.
Yeah, they do a very, very good job. Because Luffy said before we head into Water 7, because they said they headed for Water 7 of the city, Luffy, leave it to me. I'm going to find a shipwright. I'll get us a real beauty. Are you an idiot? We're talking carpenter here. It's got to be a big mountain of a man, about 5 meters tall. So that makes me immediately predict that we're going to have a small, tiny shipwright.
All right.
Very diminutive in comparison.
Prediction. It's up. Tiny shipwright.
Just give me a minute.
Oh,
I'm coming back to that.
Well, we said the word prediction.
I'm coming back onto that.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to decide if it's a woman. So I'm looking at the way that Oda picks things, and I'm trying to think, because we're eventually going to have at least one more woman on here.
All right.
So I'm trying to decide if that's going to be our shipwright or not.
All right.
No, I get to the end of the episode to decide if I'm going to stick with something.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it lets me play around with my thinking as I go. Do I think that Blackbeard has a ship wrong?
God, yeah. Absolutely he does. It's Jesus Burgess, the ship wrong.
Hazel Chai subscribed. Thank you very much.
Think about it. Blackbeard's ship is just a raft. A ship wrong is all you need.
Yeah. But when Luffy does that, it makes the bit way stronger if if Luffy says he wants this huge person and then we get a tiny, tiny person, that's way better. It's just a way better gag.
There is a canonical tiny shipwright in One Piece, but it's just a bit character Oda made up to explain why every once in a while things were suddenly fixed when they got broken in the scene before because of inconsistency. He invented a tiny shipwright who's so small he hides from frame most of the time, who's fixing doors in the background.
Oh my god. I want that shipwright to get to have a house hippo. That would make me very happy.
What a house hippo is.
Only
Sorry,
Canadian
America.
viewers.
Sorry, America. House hippos aren't native to America. You don't know about them.
So now let's do the amazing thing. Let's go to Water 7. And we come in and they're blown away and their faces are exploding, and it still didn't prepare me. It almost looks like, when you're looking at Water 7 from the outside perspective, it kind of looks like a wedding cake.
It looks like a wedding cake, or like to me, I always read it as like just a big, giant, ostentatious fountain. But
yeah, I did that at first too, but after I did the big giant fountainy thing, then I was like, but it also kind of looks like a wedding cake, like a celebration. And I'm on both of those. When they come through, I couldn't decide if the first area was the Bridge of Sighs, and I think it is, rather than the Rialto. And the Bridge of... But no, it might be the Rialto from Venice, because the Bridge of Sighs is an area that they would take prisoners across, and it was the very last place that the prisoners could see the outside world from before they were put away for life. And
I didn't know that. That's weirdly tragic.
Oh, it was tragic, all right. And I think that the city immediately perks up because they have cow, horse, boats.
Cow, horse, seahorse, cow, sea.
Cow, sea, boat, seeps. And so I saw that and was like, well, this is a top tier arc right here. Like, we're in high areas.
There's such a fantasy vibe to Water 7. Like, it feels like what you want of a fantasy location, that it has this concept that immediately visually sets it apart. And I love it. I love the visual of it.
Yeah. And I know you wanted me to prefer doing black and white, but as I pointed out to you, you got to do the story the first time as a anime. So for you, you saw it first time colorized.
Yeah, I think whatever works for you. If you're enjoying color, go for it.
Well, it's incredible because when you come into the cities, especially this one where the background is in a soft blue and white, and then there's all these incredible colors that pop off it, every single action that takes place in front of the city literally feels like it's being highlighted. So it makes it absolutely delightful. And the people in here are just so well colorized. Okay, so our first fight when we watched the pirates who decided that they're no longer going to pay for their work that was done, and we find out how incredibly strong the craftsmen are of this region, made me very suspicious. Don't get suspicious, but I'm suspicious because I was like,
"What are you suspicious about?"
That's some suspicious fighting ability, I said to myself.
Yeah, I mean, the chef Separatier could fight. Sometimes people just know how to fight.
No, I'm not claiming people don't know how to fight, and I'm already past that, so your gaslighting is useless.
I know, but
okay, they go into the main area, and I love how crowded they made it. It felt just like going into Venice, because when you get into Venice proper and you get into the main canal, it's just back-to-back everything. People everywhere, shopping taking place, restaurants, boat after boat after boat. And I was like, this is a person who went to Venice and saw how freaking cool it was and wanted to create a fantasy city that one-upped it even more. Because you know that idea I told you about how in Japanese people have a word for the feeling you get when you go to Paris and it isn't the way that you imagined it?
Yeah.
It's just not quite right. And so you have this like low-level depression. And apparently, pet the boy kid, apparently I heard from one of my Japanese students, she said that it was a real thing and that a lot of people feel very, very sad and give them a treat and wish that Paris was the way they wanted it to be. And this version of Venice was kind of the version of Venice that I'd always had inside of my head. that it looked more like this. And even though Venice is incredible and it's so cool, it's not like this. This is more of a cartoonish thing. And it's amazing how it was the Venice of my mind. And I loved getting to see it. And he put people in masks. And even though there was going to be a festival, I've never seen anyone running around in masks in Venice. And I got to tell you, this was way cool to get to see this. It's everything that I would have hoped for. Plus, the panels going up. Yes. Love meeting the crew for the first time. We've got some great fishnet stockings with wicked boots. We have outfits that are really, you think that I would immediately put them to the top of the charts since they're mostly made of nakedness and thinness. But they're just not dripping in the same way. I love the CP9. I hate them, but I love having something to hate. And I think Oda does. Villain. Oh, he does such a good job of giving us something to hate so well, because the CP9 becomes more and more hateable as this goes on. And I think that gives us that target for our hatred, so that when Robin is doing things that suck, we can be like, it has to be because of CP9. And then, we get to feel like it is. So the CP9 people being so powerful, and there's hints too, like when they get in a fight and the money goes missing later on. That's right. That's how we're doing things. When the Straw Hats go up to get their boat fixed and find out about how much it's going to cost and what it will take. When the one dude does an upside down flip and lands when he's attacked, he puts his fingers right through the pavement and holds himself up upside down. So immediately you're kind of like, well, that's above what we normally get out of our boat builders. So yeah, you can be powerful, but fingers through the pavement is pushing that power limit for me.
Look, they're just very good at special magical martial arts.
You don't need to do that. I read all of it. Okay, yeah. So, and Nami gets to pop off here with a nice, quiet, slow play where she goes, and we can spend the rest on a bronze statue. Da, 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 da. And then she just slams her foot down, her whole leg down, and says, what's the matter, Nami? I have 3 things I'd like to say, Mr. Appraiser. 1, I forgot to tell you, but he has a bounty of 100 million berries on his head. 2, I don't agree with your appraisal. 3, if you lie to me one more time, I'll scalp you. That's all. Oh, Nami.
Nami is a great negotiator, and she has been given the leverage of the pirate who has taken down a warlord and been given 100 million berry bounty, and she is going to use that leverage.
She was just saying to herself, you know what? I know what we're made of, and you're not going to cheat me. Not to mention that she spent all that time saving up her money. She knows how much things are worth because she's had to go through this process for how long?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's a magical money girl. She's a weather witch.
She's the money. She's the money witch. She has magical money powers.
Magical money. Yeah.
Knows exactly how much everything costs.
And then, of course, because Luffy is Luffying, he immediately chucks money in the canal. That was a given. I was like, why did you give money to Luffy?
Someone saying that Oda's such a real one for having a town where the workers own the means of production. Like, Galley Law Company is a co-op, and then he has the CIA infiltrate it. That is weirdly politically prescient.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that the CIA infiltrated the co-op.
Seems fair. That's where they should go.
I mean, that's what they do.
That's what they do. Kaku. Is that how I pronounce it? Kaku?
Kaku, yeah. Square Usopp, as he's known.
Square Usopp?
Yeah.
And he's also known as the Mountain Cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kaku is supposed to be for a scribe, to write or scribe. That's an interesting choice. So it makes me wonder what we're going to see from him in the future.
Something worth noting, in Japanese, apparently he has a very old-timey dialect. Like he speaks kind of like an old person.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
To write or scribe, that would fit with that as well then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to think about that. Because I think that if you come up with something as separate and interesting as CP9 as a force, it feels like that's going to be a thing that kind of is now going to be threaded throughout the rest of the story.
Alrighty.
So yeah, I guess that is a prediction.
That cipher pull will be part of the story ongoing.
Yeah, that there's no way that we're not going to have CP9 be a thread throughout the entire story now, and kind of whether they're main playing or going back and forth, they're kind of going to come in and out. I'm also starting to wonder if it's possible. Like, I know that there's a bigger connection, and I told you that I think that we have like I don't know what the word was that I used, and I'll look it up later for when I do the cork boarding, but some sort of like some kind of force, some kind of evil black cloud force over the entire story that we're not aware of. And I wonder how much of that is the influenced on specifically on things like the CP9.
Okay.
What influence they have over, because more and more I'm believing that the government is where that force is located, that whatever or whoever has come out is kind of within that realm.
Are we
government.
Willing to put a prediction down that the dark force is in the government?
I think the dark force is in the government.
All right, dark force in the government. Ding, we have predicted it.
Yeah. And this person says it really shows the government power of how you don't really suspect CP9 till it. Yeah, I would agree. But the ominous presence or whatever that thing is that's covering over the entire story, in my opinion, is coming out of government.
All righty. We got it.
And I don't know what that looks like yet, but that's my thinking on this. I love the idea of him jumping off the top of buildings and running along the top of them, because whose dream is that not? Like, one of the reasons that, and I didn't look up what year this came out, and I meant to, because
Shipwright.
No, because it was Parkour Shipwright, but it was also The Matrix, right?
Oh, I think this came out well after The Matrix, because The Matrix came out not long after One Piece started.
Yeah, and so for me, I kept thinking, like, this kind of has that Matrix feel too, when he jumps off things, and it's exactly like he gets to dictate his own reality, and gravity doesn't affect him the same way it does everyone else, and he just gets to make up his own reality of what gravity and space and time and speed look like. And I freaking loved him running along the tops. It was all of my parkouring dreams come true.
The theme song used the shot of Kaku jumping off into the city, and so I watched it over and over again, and it is just such an iconic image of just like him jumping off, turning back, looking at the camera, and falling into the city, all cool parkour guy. Love it. It's great looking.
Yeah. You can even tell in here, like, Oda does an incredible job of creating movement, action, and life within a still image. And so when you have an image of it going a huge drop and it goes,
oh.
Also, they show him jumping off after they show him from the underneath. Then they show him from on top, just spread eagle hanging over the city, canals beneath him. And then they call him Mountain Wind. So he managed to give him such a really phenomenal amount of movement. And we keep getting to go into the city and walk around. Like, we get to go through when we take off with Sanji and he goes shopping. And we get to see the shopping and we get to see all the cool things. And I was just like, you know what? Unsurprisingly, Iceberg. I love Iceberg's character.
Finding out that he and Franky are co-apprentices is so funny, because their vibe could not be more different.
Except for it made sense. The minute that you meet Franky and you meet him, they're both over the top. They both have a bizarre amount of self-worth and confidence. And it made me feel like, yeah, the extrovert introvert split. It is. But he's also kind of an extrovert in his own way. Love his little pet. I knew I was going to like him because, you know,
he's got a little mouse.
He likes animals. And I was like, well done, Iceberg. And I immediately hated his secretary.
You hate Khalifa, but she's so fun.
No, I didn't like her. And I suspected her of being a terrible, terrible kid right away. Yes, Tyrannosaurus the mouse is high five Tyrannosaurus, but carefully so that we don't break his little arm. So
well, Lucci likes animals. People are pointing out. Do you like Lucci? He loves his friend Hattori.
Yeah, part of me thinks that his friend is actually leading the charge there. So
okay.
Something that was very interesting is the way that she kept pushing up her glasses again made it feel like they weren't real, because it was similar to the way that, what was the cat pirate's name again?
Kuro.
Zoro. It was similar to the way that he pushed his glasses up, and his were because he had the claws on them. But it's almost like they're not used to wearing these things and they're not part of who they are. So they're constantly touching and adjusting them. And so when it showed shot after shot, and he kept making all these panels where she's touching her glasses every damn time. Like, I'm looking at the panels with her in him, and out of 5 panels, she's touching her glasses in 4 of them. Yeah, you could push your glasses up, but I push my glasses up. They wouldn't be in every panel you drew of me.
I want to say something about Khalifa, though. I unironically think the calling everything sexual harassment joke is hilarious, and I love Iceberg constantly being, that can't be! This can't be true! I think that bit is hilarious.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that she's great. I think her character is well developed. I think she's interesting, but I immediately was like, sauce.
And it makes sense, because when you first show up to Water 7, it really feels like, where's the bad guy? Like, what's the threat? I can't identify it, but there's some vibe that's off, so you are kind of like, who am I supposed to be worried about here?
It's also that she's not even pushing him up on the front. Like, I wear glasses, and like a proper nerd, when I would remember to wear my glasses and care about seeing the world around me, I push them up in the front, just in the center, like, boop, push them back up because they slid down, or pull them down on the sides. I don't generally hold the edge. And she does that thing. She's not even using her fingers. She's just pushing them up with the side of her fingers. And I was like, no. And then she beats them up. And she beats them up thoroughly. Really quickly. And she doesn't seem to care that she hit him, which also felt like, if you're that good of a fighter, and she clearly is,
yeah,
that she wouldn't have accidentally hit somebody who she actually loved that much. You know, that if she was protecting Iceberg with her whole heart, she wouldn't have accidentally kicked him full front in the face when he was standing on the opposite side of her and not with them. So I was like, suspecting you, Khalifa. You're cool. Your outfit rocks. Your humor is fantastic, but I'm in suspicion of you. How far have you read? I finished all of Water 7. We are now on a train.
Yeah, the sea train's technically considered part of Water 7, but we didn't read it. I don't think you read ahead this time.
Well, because people were freaking out about me reading ahead this time.
I don't think the freaking is... Okay, there's a point where it's going to be necessary, but it's not until the arc after the sea train.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I guess I won't read ahead this time. Favorite CP9 agent so far. Interesting. Okay. Who did I love? The rope dude. What's his name? Polly. I think Polly is a wicked character. I love his drip. Excellent leather outfit, and I think that his character is really cool. I love the relationship that he has with Iceberg. I think that he's like one of those friends you hope to have. I love it the way that Oda highlights friendships as we're going along too, that he sees friendships as family, and he redefines the idea of family. Do we know anything about Oda and his life and how close he is to his family?
Really, but I have to imagine, by the fact that found family is such a theme, that his birth family, probably there's some sort of issue there, especially with how many absentee fathers and dead mothers are in One Piece.
Yeah, it's interesting. And plus, on top of that, he really highlights building the relationship and staying with people. And a lot of time with people don't take their friendships in seriously. And when there's big troubles and big strifes between them, they don't do the work that's necessary to rebuild it and make it stronger. So for me, it's really cool that he spends a lot of time being like, yeah, friendships are going to have really low moments. And it's in those moments is when you get to decide, how are you going to come back making yourself stronger? And I really enjoy that. I like Hattori the Pigeon better than I like Rob Lucci. I think that should be obvious. But the entire time inside when we're first meeting all the different characters and we get to see what all the different ship crew do, and then we get to see Lucci put his fingers through the cement, which made me be like, yeah, there's more to you too. And this whole opening scene that then ends with two things happening: finding out how much Iceberg hates government.
Mm-hmm.
So right away, when you find out how much Iceberg hates government, you're like, that's suspicious. I'm looking forward to that backstory. And then the other thing is when Franky's crew successfully steals the money, you're like, good. I know that's not the reaction I should have, but I'm like, good. I'm glad they stole the money because I want to know more about Franky. And so
this forces us to find out.
I know now we're definitely going to get to see Franky. So then we go into 327 at the end, and that's the first time that somebody says, no, I'm going to give it to you straight. Your ship can't be fixed, not even with our skills. And then you go right down into the bottom, and then you find out that Sanji was also talking to him, and Sanji is standing there with the Mary at the masthead, and he says, never sail again. See, this is the problem. I needed to be able to speak about this more openly because otherwise I can't talk about what my real experience was in this chapter at all.
Okay. So we have to, if you are reading along with Mama Drawk and you really don't want to have anything confirmed for you, skip ahead in the video. I will put a timestamp of where we are done talking about this. Okay? So 16 years ago, I did something not realizing there was consequences to it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'll talk about it then. 16 years ago, down comes baby Drawk 16 years ago, and he says to me,
maybe not 16, maybe like 15. I'm thinking 15, 14. Not quite 16, I think.
Many, many years ago.
Yeah.
He comes down and his face is red and his eyes are swollen. And he comes down from upstairs and I'm like, holy crap, what the hell happened to him? And he says, I really had a hard time just now. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm reading this manga and there's this moment that just happened and I don't know how to explain it.
I think I was watching anime, but same difference.
Yeah. And you were like, but in this, you're a crew, and then there's this boat, and it's everything. It's the thing that kind of holds them together, and it's been a part of every single story, and it is a human, even though it's a boat. It feels like it has its own personality, and they killed it. And then he starts crying. I am
crying about a boat being dead. Yeah.
And then he starts crying again. And he's like, they killed it. And then he starts crying again. And I'm staring at him. And I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, this must have really, really broke you up. This author must be impressive. And he's like, I can't even tell you. I can't stop crying. I keep trying to stop crying. And I was like, I'm really sorry. So we had to talk for a while. And then it was like a little while later that he tried to make me read it again. And I was like, is this the story you were telling him about where they kill a boat? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, no, I'm good. Thanks. And then I totally forgot about it. And I'm reading away. And there was this one day that we're on the Mary and they're talking about, oh no, it was when he did the SBS where he shows the whole inside of the Mary for the few different SBSs in a row. Mm-hmm. And we get a floor plan and we get to see where everything is. And I was like, I love this ship. It's so, and then all of a sudden it was like freaking Wayne's World Scooby-Doo flashbacks fly at my face. And I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I was like, no. Started crying then and there. I called Drawk up, and I'm like, I'm so mad at you right now. I can't even tell you. I could not be madder at you. Was like, what's going on? And I'm like, I just remembered something, and it's not your fault at all. But now I know, and the entire time that I'm reading this, it's going to be in the back of my mind, and it's making every moment with this ship hurt more. As soon as they said keel, I was like, well, yeah, no, that's not good. So I called you up again, and I'm like, no, they are. Whew. So they do all this work to convince Luffy, and you see how much work it takes Luffy, and you see how much it takes him to believe that this is really the Mary's last port of call, and you see how much he wrestles with it, which is a really good idea, because later when he has his interaction with Usopp, this time that we got to see his sadness and how broken he was really helps us to create our own narrative about how much this meant, but what Luffy had to do, because Luffy sees all crew members and all family as being indispensable. And so for him to have to actually believe this and stick with this was so difficult for him. And we got to see that process, which Usopp didn't, because Usopp was busy also trying to do the best for the crew and get their money back. We meet Corgi from the world government. I was kind of pissed that he took the name Corgi because I hate him and I love Corgis. And we find out that indeed the Frankies have stolen the money. And we see that Nami might be the fastest rower in the West as she goes and finds Usopp bleeding and laying on the ground. And he is more broken inside than outside. And it's pretty incredible to see how broken up he is, because it's his shame. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, is he can't face the others because he feels like he wasn't enough for them. He wasn't able to hold on to their money. He wasn't able to be the person that he needed to be to fix the Mary. And the Mary means so much to him. And so he's absolutely crushed to his center because he feels like he's realized that he isn't enough for the crew here.
Yeah, the Mary has gone as far as it can in the Grand Line, and he feels like he's the same way, and he's just not strong enough to carry the crew any further, and he'll only let them down like he did with the money.
Exactly. And so because of how broken he is here, immediately I was like, this isn't going to bode well, because whenever a character in anything that you're reading is broken down through shame changes the way that you interact with the world more than almost anything else. Shame is such a killer of your mental well-being, and you will act in ways that you wouldn't have before. So as soon as he was so filled with shame, I was like, oh God. Exactly, shame and guilt mixed together. As soon as that happened, you're like, this is going to be awful. But the interesting part is that when we do a flashback of what happened with Usopp, I actually felt like he kind of held his own for a moment with them. And he didn't just let them run off with the money. He stood up and he went back there and he tried to get the money back, which, like, talk about brave. He took on an entire gang, burst open their door, stood there with his things and said, like, yeah, I'm here to get back our money. I can't imagine old Usopp doing this in any way, shape, or form. So for me, I was like, well, you should have paused and got yourself some backup. But on the other hand, the way that even though you had been bloodied and beaten, that you went to their home was kind of incredible. Like, for you, now we know how changed you are.
It's a moment of, like, weakness, but also strength, that he's grown enough that he says, I need to be able to help the crew. I need to be strong enough to not let them down, to face them. So I'm going to prove myself and go take on the people who took our money. And it goes really, really badly.
Yeah, and yeah, Sandra Oceana, yeah, that's what I was saying, is that he wants to be a brave warrior and that's his thing. But this was one of the very first times that I think for me, the very first time that I saw him initiate conflict in this way, because usually lately he has been standing up to the conflict, and lately he's been coming to the conflict when it occurs. But this is the first time that I'd seen him walk out of his way when he could have gone back to them and said, like, this is the thing that happens. But he overcame his emotions and he created the conflict. He went to the conflict and made it happen. And so...
No, you keep going, sorry.
Yeah, and so when I watched this, I was thinking, like, yeah, you needed to take a second to think about it first and get your back up, because you should be working as a crew. I understand that part of you didn't because you were already feeling like a failure for letting the crew down and having the money stolen, so you were trying to fix it on your own. But it boggles the mind to me that you walked in and created the conflict.
The first time we see Usopp stand up to someone is Chew, and it's because of shame and the inability to face the crew if he can't contribute. And this is the same thing. Like, this is what gets Usopp to act, is a sense of, I can't let my crew down. I can't be the weak one. I can't face them if I'm not holding up. And it makes so much sense that he reacts with such anger and self-loathing afterwards, because he gave it his all. He stood up, but unlike with Chew, unlike with Miss Merry Christmas, unlike with when he did his best to help against Eneru, he failed. He completely failed to do what he wanted. The money did get taken. He just cost them more by getting injured and causing more of a fight with the Franky family. He gave it his all. He faced his fears to not let the crew down, and he still, in his mind, did.
Yeah, and even more than that, he had already been beaten up once. They had taken him away. They had beat him up. They laid him down. He dragged himself to their workshop and went in and confronted them when he was already injured. And when just a few of them had already been able to overtake him, he still took himself to the conflict and created it. And so, yeah, he was acting from shame, and yeah, he was acting from fear and self-loathing. But I just couldn't believe that. Like, I was like, that's a full circle for you, Usopp, for you to come to the. And then what do? We go backwards. Well, we won't go there yet. Before we go to the fight, we haven't seen the thing that Franky wanted to buy for 2 million.
No, you have
200 million
not.
Berries.
He has a specific he wants for 200 million berries, but we don't know what it is.
Okay, because when he was like, yeah, we had this money and then we did this and this. So I'm hoping that that thing comes out in the future. Everybody is talking, like, and you told me that there was 2 camps that we may get Franky.
Yeah. Well, at this point, there was kind of 4 schools of thought, 2 dominant ones. And the 2 dominant schools of thought for who was going to join the crew were Franky and Polly.
So you were saying it was Franky and Polly, and I was like, Polly, it would be a shame for him to leave his person, because for me that is like, that's kind of a big shame for you to leave Iceberg, who is truly. Any predictions for already bought? We'll talk about that after Red Potato. That's some prediction.
Maybe that'll be a C-Train thing for Corkboard.
Yeah. And then I told you Franky for me. I really hope it's not Franky. Now, I just want you to hear me out. I love Franky. I think he's an amazing character.
He's one of your favorite characters of the arc.
He's a red carpet in a room. Like, for me, having Franky on the ship would be really interestingly difficult to write if you're Oda, because I always talk about people when they buy a red carpet for a room, that's fine. But now everything you do has to be done around this frickin' red carpet, because the carpet is so damn bossy. It requires your attention and your focus, and you're constantly staring at it. And anything you put in the room, you're like, does it go with the red carpet? And then everything you're wearing either clashes or goes with the red carpet. So a red carpet in a room is one of those things that you now have to start designing everything around this red carpet. And so I would say that having somebody like Franky out he's going to draw so much attention on a crew that are kind of working in unison right now. And even though Luffy goes over the top, each one of them goes over the top in the same way. Whereas Franky literally put a show on in the center of downtown and became this like over the top style. And I was thinking like, that doesn't really fit with the crew as much. Like it would completely change the dynamics of the crew to have a Franky there. And you know what? If you're going to do it, I'll come along for the ride, but I don't know that it would be my first choice. Going back though to that fight, he loves him some walk-ups, eh? Like Oda just loves him a good walk-up.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. A good walk-up is great.
I'm not saying it's not, but that man loves him a walk-up. And the walk-up and then the subsequent fight that takes place inside of here, they demolished Franky's crew. It was just like Franky's crew thought they had any kind of hope, and there was no hope to be had anywhere. The demolishing not only of the crew, but they decided to take his building out, which was a really, really interesting thing, because they just found out that they're having their beloved ship taken away from them. And then they go and they're like, well, there's a thing we know hurts. And that's to have the place that you gather, together, that you find your safety in and your joy in, where you make your memories and come together as a crew, that being demolished. We know how much that hurts. We just had it happen to us. So you know what? Have one of these, biatch, and then demolish the clubhouse. And so
it does feel like it was a personal slight. Like, you know what? We are going to make you hurt the way we're hurting right now.
Exactly. You took our money. You took away everything that we have. We might not even be able to purchase a boat anymore because of what you've done. But why don't you have one of these? And then like the complete annihilation of not just the people, but the place that they gather to be a crew. And that is absolutely decimating. And so I really thought in this one that they intentionally did that as a way of making the sting that much harder. And it works, because when Franky came, they're sitting on the rubble and they're sitting right on top of a moon, sitting in the middle of the rubble. And I immediately was like, whoa, isn't that interesting? What a fascinating little thing that is. But that's corkboard. I put that out for corkboard.
All right.
And then they try to heal Usopp, and then they say, hey, Luffy, the ship, I've decided we'll say farewell to the merry go. And that's how the chapter ends. And you're just like, I don't think I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
I was right. P.S. I was right. I wasn't ready.
Interpersonal conflict in Water 7 is so good and so harmful because it feels so real. You completely understand where everyone's coming from and why they feel what they do, and it wouldn't hurt nearly as badly if you didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's a very intentional thing. So when we go back to the shipbuilding center and Corgi, the piece of crap, comes back, and then we see in the background behind Iceberg the little picture of Nico Robin with a $79 million bounty.
Yeah, well, Barry, but yeah. Obscenely high. Second
Barry,
highest in the crew after the captain.
When she's a baby.
Yep.
Yeah, so I took a big old screenshot of that because I know that right now I'm crushed, but I'm about to be more crushed because if it's not in this one, and I wondered if it was going to be in this one or not, and it's not really, but we're going to hear a Robin backstory, and I know it's going to decimate me.
Wait, you think a child with a 79 million berry bounty is a reason to believe that there might be some sort of tragic past?
So yeah, you'll notice I didn't answer you.
I did notice that you didn't answer me.
Yeah. But a silly thing to say.
A tragic past in One Piece?
Yeah. Do you feel like you're done now?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is going to be absolutely awful.
Guys, it doesn't count as gaslighting if it's obvious. Then it's a joke.
Yeah. This is going to be maybe one of the worst backstories ever heard, because that is a baby. That is a tiny little baby. And the idea of her having a bounty on her head that high just already talks about the abuse the use of her and how people used her for her talents and her intelligence, how she was a pawn and manipulated as a child, how she didn't have anyone to protect her, that she was going to be the type of person who isn't somebody that people show unconditional love to, but has to just move around all the time, finding love and wishing people were love until at some point she just decides she's not lovable. And because she's not lovable, she's just going to work for herself. Like, you can already feel all that in her story by looking at this picture of a tiny child. And I was like, well, this is going to be awful.
I'm not confirming it right, but I did tear up a lot.
Yes. And so as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm not ready for Robin's backstory. Yeah. So
Robin did tell Luffy she had nowhere to go.
Yeah, and she just wanted to die. And she's like, I'm your problem now because you decided to save me.
Someone's pointing out that there is a connection between the weather and the status of the crew in Water 7, and the weather keeps getting worse and more dangerous as the crew drifts further apart and has more conflict.
Yeah, I was going to talk
the calm before the storm, where they decided they're settled, and then the reveal of Robin's air quotes betrayal and the Aqua Laguna hits. Oh my God, yeah.
I was going to talk about that later, you cheeky monkey, because I was going to talk about it in connection with the train, when they get the second train, and their ability to do it seems to coincide with their ability to bring some of their team back, because the weather calms down to the point where they can actually go out on the ocean slightly safer. But that person is absolutely right, because right away, as we're going through, like this picture you did with the Mary, which, by the way, thanks for this horrifying image.
What? This is just a happy boat.
Yeah, Kazada, you're a brat. Now I'm crying all over again. Whew, okay, moving on.
Now you realize why Long Ring Long Land happened. Oda needed a buffer between the sugar highs of Skypiea and the super lows. Oh, super high highs of Skypiea and the super low lows of Water 7. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta take a palate cleanse in between those.
So let's do this. We're going into something that I hate.
But isn't it also the best fight in the series so far?
You be quiet. Here we go.
It is, though. You know, you search your feelings.
Usopp is sitting there, and he's, I'm sorry, he's just broken. He talks about how he doesn't have the money, that until this guy Franky comes back, we don't know if we can. Blah, blah, blah. But we still have 100 million berries, he says to him. So no worries. How could you be so rash? At least you're still alive. It is a worry. It's our money. Well, of course, Nami would feel that. We know who Nami is.
Yeah. I
noticed Pondaman and all of them because I'm staring at them as hard as I can. Sometimes I think I miss some of them. And then I see the little Pondaman and I'm like, oh, I think I know where that was. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, yeah, there he is. Because I'm staring at these like my life depends upon it. Like a normal person wouldn't, because they would be
never
reading
catch
it for
Panda
fun.
Man because I do not look at the panels in nearly as much detail as you.
But the boy, yeah, but
the boy.
because of the way that I'm doing this is that I end up finding Pandaman. And now that they taught us in the SBS a little while ago how to look for Pondaman as a kanji, now I try to do that sometimes because apparently it was inside of Alabasta in the Poneglyph. In the words, apparently the kanji for Pondaman was in there and somebody from Japan found it. And so now I'm trying to find it. Yeah.
That seems much harder to do.
So now Luffy says... Japanese. Yeah, because I'm not Japanese and I keep forgetting the thing. Maybe I'll make Panda Man up here and put it on my board, which...
I do like that instead of Panda Man, you call him Ponda Man.
Yeah, I really do, and you're welcome.
Okay.
I think that on the one we do next Saturday when we're doing the train and when we're doing the... Safety, Luffy is being tested as a captain. I agree. And when we do all the other Corkboard Corner, but I'll show Corkboard Corner because I've done some stuff to it. Yeah, like I've done some stuff to it. Okay, here we go. Woo. I'm not ready. You're not ready. I hope everyone has tissues. Here we go. So,
yep.
I've decided to switch ships. We owe a lot to the Merry-Go, but this is as far as she'll sail. And he's smiling. And he's just taking it. And Usopp has a big question mark and is like, what? So I've been looking at some ships to replace her. If we have $100 million, we can get one that's even bigger, but it'll have to be secondhand. Hold it. Hold it. You can't stop joking around now. So we don't have enough money to repair her. Oh, because I got the $200 million stolen. There isn't enough for it? I guess a top-notch shipwright charges a lot more. No, look, that's not it. I can explain. Don't hold anything back then. I'm not holding back. Getting money stolen has nothing to do with this. The Merry-Go can't be repaired any further. Then you have Usopp with his eyes big and staring at him, and Luffy. And then all of a sudden, they start breaking into this fight. Every other wave, every battle, the venerable mate that accompanied us through it all, and they make it absolutely break her heart. And you're not going to lift a finger. You're just going to abandon her in a place like this. Is that all this shit means to you, Luffy? And then the anger and the pain go up. You're not a ship's carpenter, Usopp. I will never turn my back on this ship. The Luffy I know would have seen her through their sales pitch and have faith in the Merry-Go. I misjudged you, Luffy. I've made my decision and nothing you say will change my mind. And so they go into it. Luffy almost kicks him off the crew and tells him to leave then. And then Usopp takes himself off and says, frankly, I can't keep up with the monstrous powers you guys possess. Like today, I couldn't even guard the money. So he's just broken and crushed and thinks that all of this is his fault. He's putting all of his worries and fears and insecurities onto this moment. And he's just attaching himself to this pain. And then he says, there's no sense in traveling together when we have completely different views. It's my own business where I go. I'm quitting this crew. And then he decides, and he screams out, fight me. You're the captain of the ship. Belongs to you? Then fight me for her. And I'm like, God damn it. They're absolutely going to fight for it. Usopp's overwhelming insecurities. Yeah, I agree.
And something I think is really important here is that Usopp in this moment is even more insecure because he doesn't realize that they don't explain to him why it's irreparable. They don't explain to him that it's the keel. They just say it can't be repaired. He doesn't know that the reason it can't be repaired isn't his inability to repair the Mary. And Luffy saying you're not a carpenter, while he means it like you don't know that it can't be repaired, like you don't have the expertise, it comes across to Usopp like this is your fault. You weren't able to fix her well enough, and now she's dying.
And it makes sense that he would take it that way. But because of the way that they had a fight, which is so true for so many fights that you have with somebody, the thing that I really enjoyed about this fight in particular is you can actually see both sides of this fight. You actually can understand why the points that they both have, especially when Usopp doesn't have all the information that he needs to have.
Yeah.
And so when
so many great observations in chat.
When you feel like both of them are right, then you understand why it got this bad. Usopp's conviction to never abandon his friend is what made Luffy want him and his crew. Yeah, but usually Luffy never abandons a friend either. Like Luffy constantly says, it's because we're friends now that I'm going to fight for Vivi this entire damn time and help her take back her damn kingdom. So it's ridiculous for Usopp to think that Luffy was the type of person who would abandon a friend. Luffy has shown us time and time again that if there is even a margin of hope, he is the one that's number one standing there and saying, like, hold my hat, I'm about to kick some ass and take some numbers. I'm gonna take some numbers and kick some ass all over the place. And so you understand how bad this had to be for it to become like this. Now, the thing that I think is really important is the fight ends up being so unbelievably way better for Usopp than you ever think it's going to be. Because when Usopp tells Luffy, no, I know you, man. I know what you're like. I know how you fight. I've watched you time and again. I am basically the type of person who has watched everything in you grow, your powers, your fighting style, your abilities, and I know how to counter you. And I thought that that was a really important thing because I'm hoping that later, because I know Usopp will come back because people keep talking about him in the present tense and how he's their god. I'm hoping that later when Usopp comes back and he's part of the crew again, that his ability to stand against Luffy, when you've seen Luffy take on the Kami and all these other people, that Usopp will understand his value and his ability, and he'll understand the reason you couldn't be that other crew is because A, you didn't have the time to study them, but B, because you are a crew, not an individual. You were supposed to remember it's the exact same thing said to Luffy ages and ages ago. I can't navigate a ship. I can't cook. I can't be a sharpshooter, but one thing I can do is take you on. Everybody has a place and they fit within the Straw Hats, and together it's what makes them so strong. So I'm hoping that for Usopp, that after this fight, there's this change in him when he sees himself as being an essential part of the crew, because the fight that he had with Luffy should help to dictate for him who he is and what his strengths and capabilities he are. So I love that, because I think that it's going to strengthen him. But I think that something that is really, really important here is everybody talks about how this is when we're finding Luffy is a captain. And I'm going to jump ahead and behind because I do what I want.
Yeah, jump through time. Do it.
I'm going to jump all over the place, and that is what it is. But I think in here, everybody is talking about how this entire arc really shows Luffy as a captain. And I absolutely agree. He has some low moments. Sanji and Zoro help to remind him of what a captain is. I think it's Zoro. Is it Zoro who tells him, like, this isn't the time to back down and become despairing, because otherwise, how could we actually believe in you? You're the captain. Suck it up. And then all of that is 100% true. But what I think is really interesting is, to me, I didn't see Usopp fighting Captain Luffy. I saw Captain Usopp fighting Captain Luffy. And here's why. Here's why for me. Later on, when we jump ahead and Usopp finds out what's actually wrong with the ship, and he's talking to Franky and they're underground, and Franky throws him in the water and makes him actually look at what happened to the keel of the ship and how broken it is, Usopp becomes absolutely crushed inside and understands what's taking place now. So Usopp isn't the captain of the crew. Usopp is the captain of the ship. He is the captain of the Mary. When he calls himself a captain, he's the one who's fixing it. He's the one who's doing everything with it. Usopp has a stronger connection to the Mary than anyone. Fight me on it. Who comes to Usopp in the middle of the night in the jungle when we're up in Skypiea? Who?
I'd say the Mary.
The Mary, the spirit of the Mary goes to Usopp, and Usopp is standing in the middle of the Skypiean jungle, and he's watching the spirit of the ship take care of itself and fix itself so that it can bring its crew safely to shore, so they make it because of the deep love. And why does he show himself to Usopp? Because Usopp is Mary's captain. And so when the two of them are having their fight, no, here comes the emotional damage. When the two of them are having their fight, I saw two captains fighting each other for the love of their crew. And so for me, it was absolutely crushing, because I knew that Usopp really felt like a captain. The evidence of it too is when you go back and you look at how Chopper was being told when they were on a little vacation moment on the boat, just before they get to where the train is, and Usopp says to Chopper, call me by my name, and then Chopper says, yes, Captain Usopp. Usopp's insistent upon it because he feels like he is the captain of this boat. And then Franky confirms that he's the captain of the Mary, not of the crew, of the Mary, because Franky tells him that the ship, the Mary, knows how much you love it. The Mary knows how valued you find her. The Mary knows you did everything you possibly could to love and care for her. And that's why the Mary showed herself to you when she fixed herself to bring you safe to shore. So Usopp is the captain of the Mary. I saw two captains standing chest to chest, fighting everything they could to protect their crew.
I love that interpretation. And I think the best way to see is after the Mary, will Usopp still insist on being called Captain Usopp to the crew?
Yeah, I think the poor kids can come out of emoji only time.
I also want to say the scene you referenced of Franky sitting with Usopp is my favorite scene of Water 7. Like,
oh, I love that scene. But I'll get
I'm
into
gonna switch
it.
to another drawing because I think this is done. But God, this came out nice.
It's stunning.
I
I really, really love that.
Boat.
Yeah. So that is why I think that when we see this and everyone talks about this fight and references Luffy doing his best for his crew, I agree, because Luffy is fighting for the crew. He is aware after the shipyard when Iceberg says to him, then you're a bad captain. Because if you were a real captain, all you would be thinking about is how are you getting your crew safely to shore every time? How are you keeping them safe in the middle of the ocean? You need to remember that your first job is to your crew. But then what we forget is that Usopp is doing the exact same thing. It's like he's giving up on a crew member and leaving them broken on a beach. And to just leave someone there and it feels so unceremonious, like, thank you for everything you've done, crew member. I'm just going to leave you to rot away slowly and mean nothing, and nobody to understand how much you gave and how much you mean and what you are to a whole group of people. Well, you just slowly fade away into nothingness. And so that's what Usopp is raging against. So I see both sides in this fight because I see two captains fighting. And what I'm hoping to see after when Usopp comes back next time is I'm hoping that he now sees Luffy as the captain and he no longer asks to be called Captain Usopp because the Mary is gone and he's going to change roles now. That's how I see it for him.
And he is going to be just the sniper.
Yeah, he's going to be a sniper, but it's not just the sniper because when he's done with this, when he grieves the Mary, when he holds the Mary in his heart and he is able to move forth, he's going to have so much more feelings of confidence in who he is. He had this fight with Luffy. He did stand up for the Mary. He did every single thing that he could do for the Mary. And then Franky brutally helps him move past it. So he understands the Mary knows what you did. The Mary knows you don't have to worry anymore. You did everything you could. So he can put his feelings of uselessness behind and he can allow himself to be part of the strength that moves the Straw Hats forward. And now he's going to become so much better as a person, so much better as a fighter, and so much better as a crew member when he's no longer fighting to feel superiority, when he just feels good inside.
Oh. I love that.
Okay, I'm moving forward because I can't
talk about it. Okay, but can we talk about the particulars of the fight really quick and how badass? Like, I know we all knew Usopp was going to lose, but how badass is all the little tricks he uses? The explosion, Luffy being like, take this seriously, and Usopp being like, can't you see? I am taking this seriously. Or have you not noticed that you can't goddamn move? Pinning him down, making him unable to smell the gas to blow him up, hitting him with the shurikens, and then my favorite moment, I bet that bazooka would have hurt. Let's find out.
Yes, exactly. When he has the recoil button thing on his hand and he sends it back at Luffy, you're like, are you kidding me?
It's all just so cool.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And then this moment here where I said to myself, you know what, Oda? Is it possible you're a jerk? Because you get to the end of chapter 332 and Usopp and Luffy have their arms around them. I see an island. Wow. What place is that? And then Mary's great big grinning head is there with water dripping off of her. And then it goes oh no. Just a panel of Mary's face and eye, and it says, go, Mary, full speed ahead. And then the water is pouring down her face like tears. Okay, I'm moving forward. So when Usopp leaves after the fight, and when Luffy fights him back and realizes he has to, because he can't let Usopp win, that would be ridiculous. It would be, it would make Luffy lose all the face as a captain, because Luffy said it earlier. The one thing I can do is beat you, when he says that to Arlong.
That's what he offers. He's the guy who can beat people up.
That's Luffy's job. So if suddenly that wasn't there and Luffy wasn't the front runner and Usopp can take him down, how is the crew supposed to stand behind him and believe in him and his role? And how are they supposed to get behind his dream of becoming the Pirate King? And so it has to happen. I know it has to happen. And yet, as it's happening, you know, emotional damage.
Yep.
And then Oda keeps doing flashbacks the entire time, because he says to himself, you know, I don't think people are sad enough. But if I do some flashbacks of all the great things they've done together, that might help. Oh, okay. And then Luffy is turned around, staring at the ground, and says, this is too much. And then Zoro says, that's the burden of being a captain. So,
can we talked about this on the phone. Despite him barely being in it, we both agree that the betrayal of CP9 that hits the hardest is Bluno.
Yes.
Because a barkeeper should be safe. The guy at the tavern should be safe. Like, you said it exactly, that, like, you should be able to trust that that's a comfortable place, that the bar is where you go to be part of a community and relax and unwind and share stories and hang out. And this random barkeeper that you meet in the city for barely any scenes, like he's in like 5 panels or something, being one of the secret agents, it makes sense. That's a great place to get information, but it hurts for some reason that wasn't safe.
I said, like, every single fantasy you read, every once in a while the barkeep is going to have a bigger role, or be something more important. And every single science fiction thing you read, the barkeeper on ships in space is the person you go to feel comfortable. The barkeeper everywhere is kind of like supposed to be the person who's like a kind of a psychologist. And you come there and they're a counselor and they walk you through and they let you sit down and you get to actually take the load off, and any masks you're wearing that you're covering up with your toughness, put them down beside you, lean in and be like, barkeeper, can I get a whiskey? And they're like, you had a bad day? So for this to be like, barkeeper, can I get a whiskey? Yeah, sure. I might also kill you.
And at the very least, I am only here because when you share your secrets, it's going to tell me stuff as a secret agent to abuse your city you love.
I don't care about you.
Yeah, you are a vehicle for me to get information.
Exactly. And so I started singing the Cheers anthem. You want to go where everybody knows your name and they'll take all your information. And I started making up new lyrics to it. But then there was this little panel here, because we hadn't seen Franky do his Frankiness yet. We only met Franky in his mask. But in chapter 334, there is a lady who looks like if Mary Poppins had a bob.
Okay.
If Mary Poppins had a bob. And she gets on the train with the suitcase, while what is obviously Franky with his blue hair sticking out the side is watching her get on. And so I suspect that's where the actual blueprints were supposed to go, because I don't know that Franky had the real blueprints with him either. It felt like Franky was trying to make sure they got off the land.
Okay.
And could be wrong, could be right, but for me, that's how it felt. And then we find out that the poor iceberg has been shot. I feel very, very bad for his mouse. That's where my sadness goes.
Yeah, of course. Screw that man who was shot, but there was a mouse involved.
Excuse me, I'm not unsympathetic to his plight. He was shot. It was very, very bad. But Tyrannosaurus is very sad. When Franky comes back and he sees his Kiwi, Masu, am I dreaming this? No, bro. This is definitely where Franky House once stood. You're like, oh, things about to get... Oh, and then she says it, but this is brutal. And I'm like, things are about to get brutal all over the place. And, oh, I think Kachi sent me the thing, so I got to see Franky. Yeah. I cannot be happier. They know that we find out all of a sudden about this thing called Aqua Laguna. And I'm like, is Aqua Laguna going to be a big deal? it turns out, that is going to be a big deal.
It's a deal.
Yeah. Franky's dancing and everyone's like, go away. Oh no, I see him. And he's behind a great big curtain and you've got the silhouettes coming out behind it. And he's like, no, he's dancing. Don't be shy. Just sit back and listen. Franky. Oh my God. And I can't tell you how much I like that Franky is a cyborg. Are you kidding me? Have we not had enough things already?
No, now we have cyborgs. Get ready. You thought telepathic snails were enough? Get ready for cyborgs.
Cyborg? Come on, man. And then he breathes fire?
Not just fire, fresh fire.
Fresh fire. Dang, that's cool. Ridiculous that the Straw Hats get blamed for him being shot, but, you know, right on cue, of course. What kind of boat do you think a red carpet would build? Oh, like we've already seen him build so many boats in the backstory. That's also incredibly depressing because Oda was like, you know what Water 7 is actually short for? Tears. That is what the canals of Water 7 are filled with.
It's a canal filled with tears.
That's right. That's right. Freaking canal of tears all over the damn place.
This water's so salty, but it's coming from a fountain. What's happening? Well, about that.
We take the tears and we put them in the canal, then we swim in them. So the Straw Hats getting blamed for everything going down is perfect timing. And then we're going to kill the lot of you. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And then shadow back to Robin. The criminals are here on this island. Find all the Straw Hat pirates and hang every last one of them. Fantastic, Oda. I'm really enjoying the death. So we have this great big fight that takes place between Luffy and all of the other shipbuilding places, including Franky. But what I really liked about it is Franky kept being like, quit beating him up. I need to beat him up. This is my fight and you're ruining my fight. And they're like,
he broke my house.
Yeah, he broke my house and he hurt all my people. And they're like, yeah, well, we think he shot the boss. And he's like, and that this time we don't know the connection between Iceberg and him.
Terrible news. You have been given a mushroom for predicting a stowaway. We've asked chat for their input and that's what they've said.
Yeah, I don't super agree. I don't super disagree.
Oh, the other prediction. All ancient weapons are people is wrong when we have blueprints. We actually talked about that on the phone, and what we've come to is we're not confirming it because there's a chance there's a human component, and there's a chance that the blueprints are instructions, not actual blueprints.
Yeah, so but wait, let me go into that.
Yeah. But we came to an agreement, you and me, of why you shouldn't get a mushroom for this.
We looked at that and we were talking about it because I'm all mushroom all the time. If I deserve a mushroom, I'll take a mushroom because I make a mean omelet. I said it before, I'll say it again. But one of the things we think about is that the location of the ancient weapons is on the poneglyphs. And the poneglyphs aren't rewriting it every time the blueprints are moved around the world. And they're like, oh, Tom has them now. Tom has the blueprints for this. And so it's with Tom. Oh, no, now it's with this person. It's over here. And so it would be ridiculous to think that the blueprints themselves are just the weapon for it, because the weapon exists. It needs to exist outside of it, because otherwise the poneglyph would be inaccurate. Mm-hmm. And so we think there is another component to it.
I'm not adding a theory to it. I've not put my head in, but I have said it is very possible there's another component to it, and there might be a human element to it or anything like that. I just think that all we've been told about these being blueprints is from the perspective of the world government, who've never actually held them. So we don't quite know what the limits are. So I don't think we need to commit to a purple mushroom yet, because
So we said, let's wait. It could end up being wrong, but it might end up being more to it. We also said it's possible that they're the blueprints are more like how to work and run it, and something already exists, or there's a whole bunch of possibilities, but we just think there isn't enough information. If there was, I'd mushroom the crap out of it.
Yeah, I feel like if it is as straightforward as these are the blueprints to build a Pluton, that we find that out in the future, then this will be a purple mushroom, but we don't know yet, and I think there's a lot of wiggle room in this. So this is like a hanging mushroom where it might come up, but I think it's worth holding off before we say anything certain here.
we know that the blueprints were for making it, not its location. But what we're saying is that the fact that it existed, it told the location of where things were nasty, and it told it written in the poneglyph that can't be rewritten.
So there's a feeling of, okay, so Mama Drawk pointed out that she has the sense for narrative, and that's where a lot of predictions come from. I feel very similarly in this one, where it just feels like this doesn't seem as straightforward as we're being told that it is. And that's kind of my read on it since I first read this section, where it just feels weird for there to be poneglyphs guiding us towards where the Pluton is if there's also just blueprints to build a new one. It feels like there's more to it than we're being told. And because of that, I'm willing to give this some space and say, hey, if it's as simple as it sounds, then we're absolutely going to give a purple mushroom for this one day. But it doesn't feel like it has to be that simple.
Yeah, it feels that there's still a lot more to that one. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to finding out what direction that mushroom goes.
Yeah. In the future, we will know.
Okay. So when Luffy decides that the best way into a place is to Luffy it and crash through a front window and just be like, you know how I'm going to do this? I'm just going to take myself into the building. And then he goes and sees Iceberg, and Iceberg says, I want to see Nico Robin, one more time. And he says, I can't help you. I don't know where she is. And he said, I gambled on a silly little hope that I could get closer to the truth. And so he's decided we need to capture the crew. This goes right back into classic Luffy. Like, Luffy is right here saying, I don't believe it. Robin couldn't be this. This couldn't be the thing about Robin. Da, 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 da. And so it shows us, it just reminds us as people that Luffy has always had his crew's back. So where Usopp is fighting on behalf of, you've gone out of focus a little bit, Drawk, where Usopp is fighting on the behalf of the crew, which is his Mary, you've got Luffy here fighting on behalf of the crew, which is Robin, because there's some pretty convincing evidence here that Robin has been a rodder. And he's still like, no, yeah, this person, Luffy is ride or die. Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. So Luffy wouldn't just give up. And I think that Usopp knows that, but Usopp feels like he should be given up on. And that's why Usopp had that feeling.
I think when Usopp failed to get the money back, that was him confirming to himself that he was too weak, that he was like the Mary and going to be left behind. And
precisely.
He just didn't have a place anymore. He'd given up on himself.
So because of that, I think that's where that fight comes from, because everybody knows that that's not who Luffy is. Then we go to the bar where we get to meet the bartender who ends up being a massive jerk face.
Yeah, the very nice bartender.
And we see Kokoro, who he calls Kokoro the Hag. Not very nice. And it's super upsetting later to find out that this person is actually bad. But she seems to know all sorts of secret things. The work of pirates, do you really think that? So I like that she plants all the seeds in his head about, do you really think this could have come from the pirates? And maybe you need to start thinking in different directions. Because I think it really helped later on when Franky meets up with Usopp, because she already put it into his mind that he's thinking in a wrong direction. And I think that was very important. And then right at the end of the chapter, who do we see but Nico Robin? Of course, you'll also become wanted by the entire town, Nico Robin. True, but it's only temporary. The important thing is tonight, to get into Iceberg's mansion. If things go wrong, feel free to erase all evidence. Someone named Tom had it originally among his followers. Iceberg is the only one still living. And then she says, whatever happens, remember that this is a mission for justice. That's what they say to Robin. And you're like, oh, really? What kind of justice? So it's starting to feel like justice, and the concept of justice is its own bizarre thing, because you've got like different type of justices taking place. You've got lazy justice, which is that idea that justice is going to happen on the side, and you're going to sit by and let things occur until you need to step in, and that sometimes by doing nothing is the best way to have justice fulfill itself. And then you've got this justice thing, and justice is starting to feel, for lack of a better word, justice is starting to feel poisoned.
Interesting.
So it's starting to feel as if the concept of justice and justice existing is Tainted?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with tainted. Attention, citizens of Water 7. This is your official Aqua Lugana warning. All docks of the shipbuilding factories are hereby designated as evacuation centers. Please make your exit promptly but in an orderly manner. Be advised that Dock 1 is currently dangerous. I love this idea. He has some sweet, sweet ideas. But I love this Aqua Lugana idea because it is incredible.
Laguna is how it's usually pronounced.
Or Laguna, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, no. I love this idea because what a cool thing to have. It's another one of those times when you have a bunch of plots going on and things that you got to be concerned about. And all these different things are occurring at the same time. And
promise tomorrow.
So, as another little side note, everything is going to be underwater soon.
Yeah.
And so
giant annual tsunami is here.
Yeah. So anything that you do is also going to have this wonderful feeling of terror and drowning in the background. And that is a cool, cool idea. When Usopp has to leave the Mary because the people come on, you feel so heartbroken because he tried so hard. And in the end, it really didn't matter. Because he had to leave the Mary alone while he went out. And
whoops, daisy.
When they see Robin and she says, I won't be going back to the crew. And you're like, are we going to lose 2 crew members in this time? Now, to be fair, I knew we weren't going to lose 2 crew members. I was crushed that this was happening. But too many people talk about how much they love Nico Robin and Usopp. So for me, that felt like a spoiler alert.
I'm going to tell you, a lot of people talk about their love for Mr. Toubon Kure. So people can be beloved without being part of the crew.
Mr. Two's coming back, though, so that's okay. I mean, I don't know that he's going to be on the crew. I would imagine no, but he's coming back. I already have that as a prediction.
You do. That is on the predictions.
There are no lies about me in that article. I was definitely the one who entered the mayor's mansion last night. There is a darkness in me that you and the crew do not know. A darkness that will someday destroy you. Actually, it's convenient that the locals are blaming you for the attack. That'll help me make my escape. I didn't deserve it, but thank you for the kindness you've shown me until now. Oh, it crushed my soul because I'd already seen that picture of Robin, so I know what a horrible back life she's had. And when I watched her have to tell crewmates that she wasn't going to be a part of them anymore, that she was dark, that she was going to break them, and then thank them for the kindness and say she didn't deserve it, I just really felt for Robin more than a lot of other characters because you can tell how alone she is. It reminded me a lot of Nami and her backstory that Nami was a prisoner and had to work with inside the crew, but she was amongst the enemy and having to pretend to have relationships and friendships with them. Yeah, I know about the Jim Carrey thing. Somebody said it in here and I was like, you know what? I could see that. Yeah, I could see it. And so to have her crushing childhood ideas that I feel like she's gone through a living hell, to have a wanted poster of her when she was a tiny baby, and then to have her tell them we're never going to see each other again. And knowing that for her, that means that she is going to move away from the only people she felt have ever given her love and understanding. And so she's tossing away her one group of champions, and that's it. If she leaves them, she has no one else championing her, and she knows it. She knows that's it. And that's heart-wrenching to think about. And I feel gutted for her. I like, though, that when they're trying to figure out what they're going to do and they're all separated from each other, meanwhile, they're all trying to find the crew. They're all trying to get Robin back. They all have these ideas of what, hey, Lucky Lab, of what protecting each other looks like. And then meanwhile, Usopp is doing the same thing for his crew. He's doing the same thing for the Mary. He's out there trying to use all his money to buy supplies to fix her. He's trying to do everything that he can to save and believe in his crew. And all of this was really important. I mean, that's why when people talk about the stories, this to me was just as important for Usopp, that he needed to feel like he did everything he could. Because otherwise, later, when he was part of the crew, he would otherwise always wonder if he had done all he could for Mary. And so watching him try to get these supplies and going, the Laguna is coming up, the Aqua Laguna is coming up, and here he is running through the streets, sitting on the Mary, trying to hold her together. And it's amazing to think that everybody is putting their whole heart and soul into believing for their crew. But for Usopp, it's a lonely journey. He's alone on the boat. He doesn't know what's happening. He's lost all the people, and it's just him and his Mary trying to ride out a storm while he tries to bring her back to health. And I found that crushing.
But at the very least, he's not suspected from attempted murder.
Well, he's still part of the crew, so I'm sure if somebody found him, they would be like, "Aren't you part of the crew, pointy nose?" And then watching them trying to find Robin so they can question her, and still having so much faith in her. Just so much faith. "Where are you, Straw Hats?" says Franky. They're all running around the street. Everyone is trying to find the Straw Hats. The Aqua Laguna is coming up. And then all of the remaining Straw Hats sitting in the top of the tree. Sanji isn't here, but all of the Straw Hats sitting up in the tree. If we jump in without a plan, things can go bad. Oh yeah, look who's saying that now. If you see any movement, let us know right away. And they're all just sitting up there waiting and waiting, trying to get there so that they can rescue Robin from herself. Because Robin told them, yeah, I am bad. Yeah, I am going to do bad things. Quit having faith in me. Yeah, it is exactly nasty. It's just like he never lost faith in Nami. Luffy doesn't lose faith in the crew. And that's why I think the fight between Usopp and Luffy was so difficult for us, because Luffy is the one who is always fighting for the faith of the crew. This was such a betrayal. Like, it's not often when you are reading a piece that you're going to expect a betrayal this big to just be in one of the arcs as one of a side type things, right? Yep. Like, to have almost your whole crew of people come into your room. They shoot him again, by the way.
Yep. Iceberg once again gets shot.
So we're up to 3 now. To have such a large betrayal is mind-boggling. But you know what else was mind-boggling? Is that fruit, being able to create a door in anything.
The door fruit, it has to be the best fruit a spy could have, right?
Oh my God. If you're a spy and you have a door fruit, you have just, been given the ticket to being the awesomest. I love the tiny snails. I think if I was going to have a snail, I would want the little tiny snail to be my snail.
3, 4.
Bon, Clay, Django, and Franky are all the same Japanese voice actor. Oh, that is cool. Yeah.
Woo! Okay, I'm back.
Timo Terrimon says they do too. The little tiny snails are the most amazing little guys. Can you imagine getting to take those with you and just be out in the world? I know it's kind of like a phone, but cute. Don't forget it's cute. Your phone's not cute. Your phone's just a phone.
That's true.
Pocket snails are like a friend and a phone.
I feel like we've been primed to accept weird fiction lately by media. I was shocked at how few people whose first introduction was to One Piece was live action were shocked by telepathic snails. Like, it seems like people just rolled with that in a way I wasn't expecting.
That they were just like, oh, there's telepathic snails? Yeah, that seems legit. Yeah. But it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Like, you're watching a thing and you're like, oh, telepathic snails. Huh. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, neat. Okay.
The fighting that takes place inside the castle is incredible. It's such a lead up to have all these people who are from the CP9 wearing all the costumes and hidden, because it's the tension, and the tension is building, and you're like, who are these people after them? And what fraction of government is this? And you keep thinking like, what the hell? And then all the little backroom fighting that's taking place and the scariness, and to have it be people you've already met.
Yep.
Damn.
And they are so goddamn scary. We're introduced to the idea of the Rokushiki martial arts techniques and how dangerous they are. And when finally Luffy and Zoro, the two strongest crew members, get to Lucci and Bluno, they are just dismantled.
Immediately. And you're like, oh, no.
Now, granted, it does seem like close quarters fighting is these guys' specialties, and they get the drop on our crew, but that still speaks very highly about the threat they pose.
And the finger bullet? Come on.
Shigon. Yeah, when I watched this, official subs weren't easy to track down, so I watched fan subs, and they kept all of the Rokushiki techniques untranslated. So I can remember most of them by their Japanese names, and Shigon is just cool to say, and that's finger pistol.
It's so cool. It is an incredible attack, because when you think like Robin's fruit is amazing, but they're like, yeah, I also use my body to attack, but I don't need extra limbs. I can literally put this finger through you as if it's a bullet.
So the idea of Robin with that power is scary enough that there was a really popular fan comic someone made about Robin becoming an assassin called Rokushiki Robin that was about Robin learning this martial art.
That's super funny, because I actually thought, like, if Robin wasn't killed, if they were smart, they would say, you know what, let's bring Nico Robin on side, because if you can make as many hands as you want, like, she would be a Gatling gun. She would be terrifying.
It's
okay. Let's go into here. Robin in meeting Iceberg is really cool, especially since we get to see it through two different views. Because, oh my, this certainly is a surprise. I honestly never dreamed we'd be meeting here, Nico Robin. Have we met before? Last night was the first time, but I've always wanted to meet you. And then when he pulls out and tries to kill her, and she pulls out her guns and tries to kill him, before you destroy the whole world. And I'm like, God damn it. What's Robin's backstory? Why does everyone think this chick is going to destroy the whole world? Because we just saw her at Alabaster where she's like, why are these powerful weapons down on Earth? Wow, I don't like them. And now everyone in this one, he keeps talking about her destroying the world. Since antiquity, researching and decoding the poneglyphs has been classified by the government as a global high crime. You must know that. How do you know about the poneglyphs? It's absolutely the coolest time. The only person who can reactivate the ancient weapons is Robin. Oh. Okay, now. So Robin is not dangerous in and of herself in a way in this, too. It's like Robin is an ultimate weapon. Because Robin is able to do things that other people are not able to do.
Nobody else can read them.
Exactly. But why would... Yeah, whatever. It won't matter who's the one who possesses or just evil. The result will be the same. You can't expect weapons to bring peace to the world of mankind. The whole world will be destroyed. Robin, I can't wait to hear your backstory. Did you just put super in behind them?
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, there's a problem that you're getting so fast.
I'm speeding up, and it's making it actually harder to not run out of art to do.
Like, you're getting so fast.
I deleted a major section of the Mary today, and still, we're gonna finish both of these.
My God, that's incredible. He tries to take Robin down, but he forgets that Robin can just spin her spinny hands around him and take away the gun. When we find out who the bad guys is, I love Luffy. Luffy in this one is nonstop getting stuck in between things. He gets stuck in between one wall. He's stuck under the bridge. He's stuck in a wall. God, Luffy. Straw Hat Luffy, did you come all this way just to take the blame? And then he kicks him and Luffy's like, oh, thank God, now I'm out of the damn wall. And annihilates Luffy and pins him to the ground. which works out in a way because, you know, then he can make great friends with people. And, you know, Luffy could make friends with wallpaper. And so the two of them teaming up to fight together is awesome. Okay, so to a dying man, then Lucci takes off his mask. Kaku takes off his mask. Oh, what a absolute betrayal. This is such a deep betrayal. And for some reason, that frickin' barman is such a betrayal.
It hurts for some goddamn reason so badly. Like, no, the barkeeper can't betray them.
Yeah, it absolutely shouldn't hurt as much as it should. But this reveal is incredible. 5 years undercover. Absolutely doing a banger job. Killing it in the industry.
Great spies.
Gaining his complete trust. And then to pull apart. You've heard the name Cypher Pull. CP1 through 8. Oh my God. So we go all the way up to 8 and they're like, of course. And yet we are CP9. The 9th Cypher Pull. Which shouldn't exist. Oh, God. Now I want there to be a Cypher 10. Just so we're clear, even...
You want a Cypher Pull 10, even though...
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to make a prediction that there's an even secret or Cypher Pull?
Just let me think for a second, because...
I will let you think on it.
I like that Oda tells us, like... You know, we've had this conversation before about how he brought Mihawk Hawkeye into the scene, like, in East Blue so early. Like, oh, we're just going to chuck this dude out there. Mm-hmm. And then he fights him with a tiny little kitchen knife, and you're like, God dang. Which is amazing. But there are people who are stronger than Hawkeye. So are they the other pirate? Maybe no. But there are people who are stronger than Hawkeye. And so I do love the idea of we meet what we think is the highest level of Cypher Pull, and then it turns out no. So just for fun and because mushrooms are tasty,
okay.
Yeah, let's do a Cypher Pull 10, or at least it could have a different name. It could also be so secret it's not even a Cypher Pull.
Okay. So, but a higher level of government secret agent.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep it as broad as possible so that regardless of options, you have a chance if there is something.
Well, I've met you, Jeannie.
This is as kind of a prediction as I can give you. I am saying...
Oh, I know it is. I've met you.
I'm saying if there is any secret agent group that works for the world government that is more dangerous or more secret than CP9, we're going to say, yep, you get a gold star.
CP 9.5. Thank you, Jade.
CP 9.5. Drawk the Jin. Honestly, I've been thinking I do need to make like little genie art of myself.
Yes, you do. That's 100% true. No, I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So Franky, the fact that they know that Franky's alive, and then we get this amazing backstory. I think that it's incredible that Oda produces backstories one after another, which you have to do, because when you're doing something that's this rich, when Oda is creating so many layers and levels, you're going to have so many backstories in order for us to really get a full idea and a full meaning of how crazy things are and why things are such an injustice or how people are connected together. It makes it way richer.
That's a good interpretation.
Yeah. So I love that there is this whole other backstory for why Franky exists. But I hate... I just looked at it again. I skipped it the last time I reread this. I hate the finger bullet because he uses gross words in it like splut.
Splut?
Yeah. Every time he sticks his finger into someone and he makes himself a finger bullet, then he goes splut. And I'm like, and then Lucci is holding his dove and he lifts his hand up and one finger is just covered in red. And you're like, oh, God, no. So, yeah, I hate it because it's gross, but the split is also enough for me. And it was shocking to see how decimated Luffy became, because we've been at a point now where we're thinking like generally Luffy is able to hold his own in most things, and to see him just get taken down like this was such a great indication that we are not seeing something at such a higher level.
And this isn't like Crocodile where it's like a power Luffy can't fight. Like, there is no ability Leopard has that makes it untouchable to Rubberman. Like, exactly. Leopard isn't something you need to strategize around. It is just a guy that much stronger than Luffy.
Exactly. And when Zoro shows up, you think, oh, this is going to be another one of those typical moments. Luffy starts the fight. He's fighting. He can't kind of do it. He needs his tea. And Zoro shows up. They fight and take. Nope. Absolutely not. And
sorry, Leopard's too hard.
You're like, oh, that's interesting news. That kind of changes my perspective on power levels and what I so far know about the world. Because if these people exist, then there's a whole other level of people with super abilities. Then there's got to be more like that out there.
More people with these crazy martial arts abilities. It's what I love about One Piece is that there's so many power systems, and one of them is martial arts.
Yeah, and so what I'm thinking is either more with these exact particular, more members of CP9, or higher than this level, or whole other types of martial arts or fighting styles or things that are going to end up being really, really difficult for them to take on. And it's just kind of video game logic that, you're going to keep meeting against bosses that you can't quite conquer and you have to level up. But it's still like, to have it be such a decimation really felt like, oh, I thought we would be a lot closer.
Yeah. How quickly the crew loses here and how brutally feels shocking with what they've been able to accomplish. Especially, I really think it hits harder the fact that there's no trick, there's no special ability. They just get beat.
Yeah, no, they absolutely just get annihilated. And I love the cat fruit.
Cat fruit model leopard. Someone pointed out that Tori is Japanese for bird, so Hattori is just hat bird.
Yeah, there's also the thing, though, about that word. I was looking it up. Let me find it right here.
I just thought of something that's going to make this so much cooler. Oh my god, is it going to work? Chat, we're up. You're following me on a mission. This is going to be great.
Hattori was a clothing guild for the Shinsen family. They were silkworm growers. There's a whole thing about how they took revenge, and so there ended up being a sword similar to a katana that was named Hattori. So Hattori is also a weapon. I also feel really bad for Polly. Deep down inside, I still feel like we're still comrades, because Oda is making a really good job of reminding us that there was camaraderie between them, actual friendship, and friendship in here means so much. And so to have Polly be really crushed by what's taking place, and that all of the people that he trusted as comrades are fighting against him and are actually working under the cover of darkness. This is like an ultimate in feeling like you have been had by a group of people who were supposed to be your found family. That's an awful feeling. Oh, but there is an amazing image that he did.
I forgot how this works, I think. Oops.
I couldn't remember what movie it reminded me of. I kept staring at it. But in 350, he does this amazing image where Lucci and the others are going through the air, and they're all in all black with black rimmed lined eyes over top of the city, flying through the air, and Lucci is looking up at the camera. It is incredible. Okay, we're coming into one of my very favorite parts of the entire arc, and that's when Usopp more crying.
Yeah.
When Usopp is with Franky and his sisters, and they're in the basement, and he's saying, "Idiot, stop, I ain't crying. All right, I admit it, you moved me so far to protect your ship. It's too much, you're breaking my heart." Usopp is like, "No, I'm still gonna be a pirate, and I'm gonna sail on this ship." And Franky's like, "Dude, no, you're not." And to see the crush that Usopp has, and how when they're talking, he's like, "I'll help you take the ship apart." What? No, you're not going to do that. And Usopp really felt that when he had made this camaraderie, that finally he had found somebody who understood his side and his perspective and was like, I'll stand behind you. I see how hard you have fought to keep this ship. And that matters. And this whole story has broken me to tears. I'm going to work to help you. And instead, he's like, look, I'm saying I'll help you dismantle. It's not even funny. Bro, I'm not letting you near her. The Merry-Go is my ship. So when Usopp said that, I think that was, for me, the first moment that I decided that Usopp is also a captain and that he was the captain of the Merry, because he's calling it his ship. He fought for it. And I was like, you know what? Absolutely. And then when Franky tells him, yeah, I understand, because that thing that you saw would have been Mary. That would have been Mary's spirit. And Mary's spirit wanted you to know how important you were and wanted to keep you safe. And he flattens Usopp and sticks him under the water, and he sees the keel broken, and he finally understands. But he's still saying, I'm going to fix you, Mary. I'm going to fix you over and over, as much as I have to, Mary. I'm going to fix you. And they're all crying. And he's like, I would knock your long nose off if I could. You can't fix something if the keel is broken. I'm warning you, shut up. I don't want you telling me anything. I knew the Mary was done. I knew she was done. And then he breaks apart and falls on the ground and talks about the moment that he saw Mary in the jungle, and he saw the small little person fixing her in the middle of the night. And that's when Franky tells her, dude, you saw the Clawbout Turman. And that Clawbout, and that is there for you because, you know, sailors talk about him. He comes out. It means your ship has been well treated as it could possibly be. And for Usopp to hear that, I think helped Usopp to understand that the Mary was his crew and that the Mary chose him. He doesn't get a chance to go far enough into that, of course, because the worst people in the world so far, the CP9, show up and take over his lair because they think they know where the real blueprints are going to be, and they are demanding to have them. And then we go back in time to our amazing flashback. It was really interesting to me, too, because to find out Franky made all of these ships when he was working for Tom that were all weaponized, and that he just didn't understand the power of the weapon. And how important it was that when you put something like that out into the world, that you have a responsibility to it. And watching it start coming back and having him understand the bad that he did in this, that was another crying moment where I was like, I can't do this again. I can't cry more.
It's so brutal to see Franky's revelation that making weapons because they're cool is irresponsible and he needs to think about them, but Tom still being like, just because it does something you don't like doesn't. And it's not Tom talking to Franky about Franky's ships, it's Tom talking to Franky about Franky, saying just because something you build does something you don't like doesn't mean you are able to stop loving it. You have to still love what you're responsible for making, talking about Franky to him.
It also really feels like, yeah, exactly like you were saying, because it feels like he's saying, like, currently in the place that you are in your life, you feel like you need to make these things. Currently, you are going off and building things that I don't approve of. You're creating angst amongst our group. And yet, you are partly my creation because I took you in, because I saved your life. I have a responsibility to you, and I'm not turning my back on you. I've helped to make you who you are. So have others. So even though people abandoned you, Franky, you can't abandon your creations. So the blueprint is almost done. The idea that he's going to build this great train. I love that Tom is like, yeah, I survived. I told them that I'm going to build this amazing train and that it's going to take people from place to place, and finding out like what a poor spot Water 7 was in prior to this, having seen it in the future and seeing how it's thriving and knowing like what incredible work Tom did and how they were able to have this family. What is that damn frog's name again, who's part of the crew? Yokozuna. Thank you very much, guys. So Yokozuna is sitting there at the table, and he's just this background character there. And as soon as you would see Yokozuna sitting at the table, and then you remember him swimming to the train and putting himself in front of it and testing his courage. It almost feels like he's punishing himself and he's doing a penance over and over and over again, standing in front of the train because he was unable to protect Tom, because he was unable to be the crew that he needed. Absolutely incredible throwback to see him sitting at the table, and he doesn't even say much, and yet to go back in time and remember that this is the frog that you saw standing in front of the train tracks broke my heart. To think about how much he felt like he failed Tom. We meet Spandam.
Yeah, Spandam, great guy.
Yeah, I've decided I hate him more than almost anyone in One Piece. So Spanman comes around and he's like, yeah, I don't want him to get away with things because I know what I want and I will possess the ancient weapon and I will bring an age of piracy to a crashing halt. Watching Spanman create the hate and hell and use Franky's weapon boats against him and have them attacking so that he could take away what was going to be Tom's grand moment of a reprisal from his and he was going to be forgiven of his earlier crimes. His crimes of, by the way, being friends with Goldie Roger. And this was exactly like Nami's earlier story too. I think that he did a lot of kind of bringing Nami's earlier piece into this, because you've got Franky here who stuck up for Tom. And then what does Tom do? He intentionally fights and pulls all the attention to him. And then when Franky gets hurt and gets shoved out and Tom dies, Franky rebuilds himself and becomes cyborg. But Tom pulled all the attention and was like, hell no, I am proud that I aided the man called Roger. And he takes all the firepower on him so that he can save Franky. But it does not work. Instead, Franky goes nuts. But you know what? I got to tell you, even though Franky goes nuts, even though he ends up having to become a cyborg to save himself, I'm really glad that he hit Spandman in the face.
Yeah.
It's
at
just
least there's
so
it's an at least there's
feeling.
that.
It's so good feeling, right? Like absolutely phenomenal feeling. You're like, oh, I'm so grateful for you. I wish you could have hit him harder. Is there anything we could hit him more with? So when we go back in time and we see Franky crawl himself back up onto the ship, we understand now as a group where that came from and what happened. So we go forward and we see that Iceberg decided to give Franky the blueprints because he knew that they were going to be looked for and that it had been leaked where they were. It's almost like
we're going to do the Jin. We're going to do the Jin, but that is a good panel suggestion, y'all.
Just to add to the sadness, when they take away Usopp and they take away Franky, they open the back door, and the water pours out, and Mary is sucked out into sea, and all you see is Usopp standing there crying, screaming, and then it goes, Mary! Oh my heart. So when all the different members of the Straw Hat are laying on the ground, and Mr. Iceberg is regaining consciousness, and he realizes what occurred, and he feels so bad, and he's talking to Nami. And he says, I'm so very sorry. I'm so very sorry. I had no idea. I want to talk about Nico Robin. Do you know something? When I came to that town, when you came to the town, did that woman start acting strangely? And then he tells her the whole backstory of Nico Robin and how she was pulled into the fight and how she was forced to take the sides and be with the CP9. And then he said, do you understand, Nico Robin? The blueprints you people are after, they're fake. And she says, if it's your simple desire to know that history leads to the destruction of the world, then you should die here and now, Nico Robin. And then she breaks down and she looks at him and says, an emergency order in which 5 vice admirals from the Navy headquarters and 10 warships assembled at the same location. The target of such a national war-class military force cannot survive. Even in the Navy, only 3 admirals and the head of the Navy of the Fleet of Admiral are able to exercise that kind of authority. But this time, through Admiral Ojiki, CP9 obtained the right to activate it just this one time. And so So she said, myself accepted. I want the 6 remaining Straw Hat Pirates to sail from this island safely. And so that's why Nico Robin had to do what she did, because finally in her life, when she's been hurt, betrayed, and used by so many people, she found people who just loved her for who she was and appreciated what she did.
Look, guys.
And so she decided there was nothing she could do. She had to save them. And her life was worth nothing if they weren't around. So she was willing to do whatever it took. She was willing for them to hate her. She was willing to put her life on the line if it meant that the crew that finally showed her love got to live. It's just so Straw Hat, this idea that when Robin betrayed them, when Usopp, in their opinion, betrayed them, it weakened them. It weakened their physical strength. It weakened their way to do things. And then when they found out that Robin actually was doing everything that he could to protect them, then Nami is like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that she didn't betray us. That means that we will have infinite strength if she needs our help. The fight here at the end, when Sanji is trying to decide what to do, and he's at such a loss. He's like, do I get on the ship? Do I not get on the train? I need to go with her. Da, 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 da. And then in the background, Nami is telling all the other Straw Hat members, this is what happened. This is what's going on. And they're like, how are we going to save her? But you guys help this girl out. And suddenly the entire city of Water 7 that are available, that are out when there's about to be this huge battle. He did such an incredible job of creating that urgency in this last few chapters, where he has like the trying to find Zoro and Luffy and trying to figure out how to get to the train in time, and the way that time keeps coming up, and everybody's got like a watch in their hand, and he's using time over and over again to create this like deep urgency between all of the people who are absolutely breakneck speed running to this thing where there's a collision of all these people's purposes. And he creates such a feeling of being on the edge of your seat for this entire last thing. I was holding my breath. I can't tell you how fast I read it. I burned through these last few chapters because I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And it felt like the pace was on fast forward. And I was just like pushing myself through as fast as I could so that I could find out, is Nami going to get there on time? And they're working everything they can. And then what do? They leave early. You're lucky that Sanji was even there, because they're just gone, period. And you're like, you are so Odaing this moment. Like, you're just Odaing it up.
Water 7 really just is, it can't get worse, can it?
Yeah. And it's exactly what I said about reading The Road. Is that every time you move forward, you're like, oh, and then when we move forward a little bit more, it's not going to get worse. Oh, it did. It got worse. We know now that Sanji is with Robin. We'll get to Annie's lobby, no doubt about it. And then it shoots back to Sanji, who's just fighting his goddamn way through an entire train. And it's hilarious because it talks about it as being like, in car 1, you have this. In car 2, you have this. And each layer is bigger and bigger stakes. And then you have Sanji, who's almost like in a video game, walking himself car to car.
He's basically in a brawler video game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he goes to Jerry, the CP6 intelligent member from Karate Island. And Jerry looming over the top of Sanji, and Sanji standing underneath smoking, and it floating up onto Jerry's face. And he tells him, oh yeah, here's what's in this box. Here's what's in this box. And then Sanji's like, okay, well now I know what I need to do. Let's go. It's time for you to get your ass kicked. And the brawling that takes place up the whole way. And then you go back and you've got everybody on their bulls flying through the water trying to find them. And you're like, where the hell are freaking Zoro and Luffy? And the entire leftover people are screaming for them, trying to find them. And you're like, there's no way. They're not going to drown them, are they? There's a possibility. You never know. Oda's done some stuff. Yeah, at this point...
At this point, it doesn't feel like Oda's pulling punches.
No, at this point, I'm saying, like, I said to him, he's not going to drown them, is he? And then I was like, you know what? In this arc, maybe. He maybe will. And then the tsunami wave of the Aqua Laguna is coming roaring in across the sand. And they see where Luffy and Zoro are. And you're like, is she actually going to go and get them? Yes. The answer is yes. Nami has some of the most high stakes bravery ever had, and manages to they both, and Chopper as well. And Chopper has struggled with bravery. Like he's had some struggles, and he goes out there and collects Zoro, and together they make it back just in time. But Polly needs to pull them off the bridge because even the bridge isn't safe. And you're just like, damn, that was so down to the wire. Oda, you are creating the most urgency I have ever felt in any of the things that you've made so far.
There's so much of a sense of a ticking clock.
Yeah. And so I said earlier that Oda is really, he loves time, and he uses time inside of his work. And in this case, he's used it in a way that as you're reading it, it feels like you can feel the time running out, and you're just staring at like a sand timer, and it's just going through. And then he pauses for a minute. It's considered one of the mightiest summit of the forces of justice in the world, the Navy headquarters. And in the other are rows of torture chambers and execution blocks, dangerous prisoners who've rampaged the world over and are confined there. It's the great underwater prison in Pell Down. There's no way we can wait until morning. Nami is Namiing. Oh my God, I'm a little concerned. I really need to think about where I put
Well,
Nami.
We got half an hour left before we hit the 4-hour limit. This is just a review episode, and it's going to be edited like an hour and a half at minimum.
This is the longest freaking thing I've ever read. Like it's so big and it's so dense. Okay.
No, I don't blame you for it being long. It's just, damn, this is going to be a long one.
Our crewmate is waiting for us. Get out of our way. Oh, Luffy. And then they stand, the rest of the Straw Hats stand there against everyone else. And that's when Kokoro says, you know what? Come with me. I'll send a sea train out for you. And you're like, yeah, baby, yes, yes. Boy, do we ever get to see a sea train.
The Rocket Man, the Model 1 sea train.
So incredible. And when we go back onto the train and we're just watching Sanji making his way through the entire frickin' thing, and then he comes into where Usopp is. Sanji, what are you doing on the sea train? Well, I'd like to ask you the same thing, but I'm afraid we haven't been introduced to you over there. He just stops and communicates with the people back there. Sanji is one of, we've said it before, like in Alabasta and a few other places, Sanji is constantly coming in clutch. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm afraid I'm going to need to, all right, I guess I'll do it. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with panache. I'm Sanji. So the fight between them is incredible. And then Captain T-Bone from the back looks kind of like the Weird Knight. He's got that same look.
Yep. I love Captain T-Bone's vibe being like a good dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. And he looked like exactly like the Weird Knight. And I really love that because it made me trust him. Like it made me think there was more to him right away. The Rocket Man, I can tell you for sure that is the greatest name for it. It couldn't have a better name. It's amazing. And I love that Iceberg and Kokoro decide to take it out, and they're like, no, you could never do this. Let's do this together. And we are going to be a part of your Straw Hat crew. Please take us with you. The Galila guys said you were going to Enos Lobby. Our bro was abducted by the government. We want to go after him, but we can't get through Alta Laguna. And to have them be Luffy, listen to all their things, and then go, you know what? Get on.
Let's just go fight the government.
Another clutch Luffy moment where he really understands what it means to be in people's corner. Okay, so let's do our closing things. We've got a bunch of new devil
devil
fruit.
fruits. Oh my god, yeah, we have the door fruit, we have the leopard fruit, the cat fruit model leopard. Actually, do we have more than that? Cyborg's not a fruit.
I have an idea. Why don't we wait until all of these that should all be called Water 7 but aren't, and then I'll fruit it up.
For fruit, yes, I think so, but I think we can do MVP section by section because the MVPs are going to be very different on the Sea Train, Any Slobby, and Water 7.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so this is Luffy's top 5 presented by Luffy.
This is Luffy's top 5. Luffy is number 0.
Yeah, Luffy wins, and now who else is on the list?
Yeah, so number 1 for me in this arc is the Mary.
This is where you're at the Oscars and there's the in memoriam section.
Yeah, full no question. Mary is my number 1. And then when we're talking about enjoyment, it's really, really hard because there are so many characters who came alive in this piece. And I can't put Usopp with Luffy, but that's kind of what I would have done as some of them because they're both, because for me, they're both acting as captains here. I really see them as being in tandem. But then also, I'm talking about what for me is such a standout. And so I think what was such a standout for me in this one is Usopp number 2. And part of me wanted Franky to be number 2. And I don't want to talk myself off of Usopp. I
feel like number 3 is a great place for Franky if we were wanting to slap him on.
Yeah, I'm going to do, number 3 will be Franky.
Okay. Why is this?
Even though I kind of want, you know what? No, number 3 is not Franky.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm gonna
put her last. Like don't put her on until every other slot is filled.
Okay, number 3 is Nami.
Okay. You got to say why now.
Okay. So
you have to keep her on the board while saying why.
Okay, so I look back
people are
at
saying
this.
People are pointing out no Robin in the top 3.
Dude.
I'm
not taking Nami off for Robin. Quit trying this.
Well, look, all I'm saying is Robin.
Sure. So the reason that is Nami is from the second that we entered Water 7, she is the one who bargains, gets them more money. Yep. She's the one that leads them in the right direction, is like, this is what we have to do. She accepts things first. She's the one who's always holding on to the hope of the crew. And she's being a go-between everyone. Every time you turn around, there's Nami telling people, no, that's not it. Hold on to strength. Finding Usopp when he's injured, going back and organizing everything, coming back. Like, Nami is in every corner. And then on top of everything else, in the moment where Nami is sitting there with Iceberg, and he says that, and she starts crying, and then she says, well, now that we know this, then we're going to have unlimited strength. For that alone, Nami for me felt like the emotional barometer of this arc, that we knew what things were doing because we just followed how Nami was feeling.
All right.
Don't take Nami off. Don't take Nami off.
Yep. That's the mission.
Okay, so number 3 is Nami. She was awesome.
Yeah. Now we have a Robin and a Franky that feel like they are contenders at this point for how much they did for this.
I put Franky on at 3.
No, you switched and put Nami at 3.
No.
What?
I put Nami at 4.
I'm pretty sure you said Nami at 3, but the thing is, it's a misspeak, but my tendency to put literally what you say on the countdown. If this means, even though it's from a misspeak, not changing your mind.
Did I say
you said Nami at 3. You did, meaning that it happened again in a new way. In a new way, it happened again, but it did happen again. It's in this circumstance, it's because you said it wrong, but it still happened. That's so funny, though.
I'm sorry, Naomi. Oh, that is ridiculous.
You thought you said 4? You said 3.
Okay, Naomi is 4. And Franky is 3. Franky's 3.
Okay. How did it happen again?
Okay. Ridiculous. Oh.
Is number 5 Robin?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. Oh.
You can't bump a woman off the board again.
Number 5 is Robin, but what about frickin'... What about... Okay, what do we got here? Mary is number 1.
Yeah.
Usopp is number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3... Number 3 is Franky.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Nami, I hope.
Yep.
And number 5 is Robin, but then Sanji. Sanji has been Sanjiing.
Sanji was pretty great. But at this point, if you were going to include him, we're not beating the allegations of sexism because you're having to kick a woman off the board, I think.
You know what? I can't, man. I can't make her move down anymore. But the problem is that...
No. It's so funny that it happened again, even though it's for a different reason. Because they're not gonna kill Usopp or Robin or Nami or something like that. It probably until the very end. If a crew member is gonna die, it's at the very end of the series. But you're right. You need something. You need a sense of loss. You need something to make us take the Grand Line seriously, to take the world of piracy seriously, and.
Exactly. And so it kind of represents how the trials and tribulations of pursuing your dream are going to come at a cost. And it requires you to choose and recommit, especially when things get bad if you think you're going to succeed. Like, you have to recommit. You have to choose to do it. And you have to remember that if you let those things knock you down, then you were never worthy to have those dreams. Okay. And so your world can implode, but you have to reinvent yourself and your circumstances, and that's why dreams don't die.
We gotta give special props to Narwhals for using channel points to modify an emote to turn the Mama Drawk crying emote black and white and typing on the deck of an angel.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times now, and it's just amazing.
That's funny. That's so good. Everybody, thank you so much for sticking around for our pretty long but very fun discussion about Water 7. I love Water 7 because I love to suffer and cry and feel sad about stuff, and boy howdy does this give us ample opportunity.
This person has a thing they want to whisper to you. Go to join our...
Yeah, join the Discord and you can DM me. I accept public DMs on Discord.
Hi, everyone. We're super glad to see you here today. I hope you enjoyed watching the Drawk show and coming with us to Water 7, the tearfuliest tearful place that I've been in a long time, where Oda tries to suck your soul out. If you enjoy being part of our group with this and you want to be on our crew, then please subscribe and crew up and press the like button. The only one that it helps if you don't subscribe is YouTube, because they'll do a good algorithm and give it to you whether you subscribe or not. So it's only helping us if you do. And we have such a good time doing these things with you. Why don't you consider coming to Twitch sometimes, because you can't imagine the stuff you don't hear.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so glad we got to talk about Water 7. I'm so glad the series has gotten this far and that we have so many people with us on the journey. It is just such a blast.
Absolutely. Kitibo for using your moment so effectively. Thank you everyone for being here. It's been an absolute awesome time. Water 7 was horrifying and amazing.
It was so good. Oh, thank you guys so much. This is such a blast. And until next time, everybody, it's been lovely talking to you.
Even if I tried to steer, the throttle wouldn't work. That means this train is always going full throttle. No one can stop it now.